But that's what I'm saying. I think that was our first time interacting.
And it
I
was
think
just a hi bye.
probably, yeah. We were both on the same show, and it was like probably didn't watch each other's sets type shit, you know? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yo, show.
Arguello, right?
Yes. It's okay if you don't say it right. I'm not tripping.
Marcella Arguello. I don't know if you'd be okay if I didn't say it right, because I know you, Marcella. I know you. You're gonna start some stand-up bit. You know what? I hate these dudes that can't even say my name right, and they ask me on their show, and they can't even say my name right. See, that's why I'm scared of you.
Say my name.
That's right. That's what I'm doing. That's so before we get to Bitch Grow Up, your special, I want to catch everybody up how we first met. And if this is the first time you remember us meeting, San Francisco Cobb's Comedy Club, was that the first time?
I don't think that's right.
I think that's right.
You mean for New Year's?
Yeah.
No, we met way before that, but like years ago at a random ass LA show. That's for sure.
Really?
Because to me, that was my second time like being with you.
Were we on the same show? So, because this is different. Maybe we were on different shows then. But here's the difference too. I'm sorry to cut you off. As I'm thinking, because when you do a show in LA, like we did a lot,
yeah,
you really never see anybody. You do your part and then you bounce, right?
But that's what I'm saying. I think that was our first time interacting.
Okay. And it was just a hi bye.
Probably, yeah. We were both on the same show, and it was like probably didn't watch each other's sets type shit, you know? Like,
Get out of here. Let me tell you something. When you were backstage, when I met you at Cobb's, you were so nice and pleasant. And like super nice. I was like, wow, she's one of the nicest people. And then I dug into like your Twitter and different things. I was like, oh, she like I don't want to say you're a different person, but like your persona online is different than the person I met, like hung out with. Does that make any sense?
I will admit that if I'm new to interacting with someone, you're not going to get full-blown me being a bitch to you. Like, okay. I know that people aren't comfortable with that. You know?
I got to earn that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I also some comics are very sensitive. You know, comedians are sensitive people in the sense that the reason we're good at stand-up is because we are sensitive to the world around us. We see things that other people don't see. We can interpret things people aren't, they're just not seeing it. And the flip side of that is a lot of comedians are pussies, and just the most sensitive people you've ever met.
Have you been in a fight with a comedian that you can talk about?
What do you mean? What do you mean fight?
Like an argument where y'all just didn't like each other?
I mean, there's a lot of comedians I don't like.
But do they know that you don't like them? Like,
probably, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I guess my thing is I'm never around comedians that much, so I don't know how does that happen? Do you see their set and you make a snide comment, or they see yours and talk crap about you?
Well, it's more just like, because like in that green room, the Cobb's Comedy green room, it's, first of all, that was a different type of environment because it was a New Year's Eve show. So, the stakes are a little different. But let's say we're doing a Wednesday night at Cobb's, and it's like the variety, the local everybody show, and I'm gonna bust balls. I'm gonna absolutely bust balls. People to interpret it or take it maybe more offensive because I'm a woman, and then it's like if somebody bombs, I'm gonna make fun of it a little bit. I'm gonna poke fun of that shit, like, damn, you didn't really fucking get them that time. So, like, why'd you do that to us? And some comics enjoy it, they love it, they're down to bust balls because that is what we should be doing as comedians. And some don't like it, and some I think. There's a lot of men. I just can't take it from a woman. It's really fucking funny to me.
So do you run? That's another thing I wonder. Do you run into that a lot? Like men just can't handle you, like comics.
Yes, and actually, I would actually say some of the older comics are worse than the younger comics. The younger comics, I think maybe because now they've seen me do stand up. Like maybe when they started, I was already like, somebody they were already watching maybe on at midnight or something. Yeah, and. So they enjoy it because they're like, oh, that's how she is. So like, I'm so glad she fucking roasted me or whatever the fuck, And so that's kind of, I'm actually enjoying spending time with some of these up and comers, these younger comics. they get me. They have more fun. They like it. They're also like used to women who are a little more like confident
Well,
and assured of themselves.
I think the big switch from just when I started, how long you been doing comedy?
17 years.
So I've been doing it 12. And the big switch I've seen just in the 12 years is I remember my first 5, 6 years, every time a female comic came up, they would say female comic.
Right.
Your
I was
next
about to correct you right now, but I was like, I see what he's doing.
No, yeah, because I would never call you. You're a comic.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
anytime there was a female on the lineup, they would always have to say, coming up next, we have a great female comic. And
Yep.
I found, even 12 years ago, I found that odd. You know, that's
Yes.
like saying, well, our next Black and Asian comic.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I guess we got to get ready for that.
Yeah, right? So it's good to see how comedy is progressing. And I also feel like after podcasting became big, comedians were like, yo, we need each other. So we're going to be nicer to
Absolutely.
each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Now, how was it? Because I've opened up for Hassan as well. How was your time with Hassan?
I mean, it's great. I mean, I've known him since we were open micers. Like, I've known him forever. And there's another one who, like, you know, he got famous, and it's funny because I still bust his balls. I bust his balls just like I did, 15 years ago. And it's funny watching other people get uncomfortable because they're like, oh, you can't talk to him like that. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, man, I can, because he is someone I've known forever. And like, first of all, what? Shut up. You know, like, what are you talking about? There's no like a certain way you're supposed to talk to people, you know, and I think it's weird when comics lose that banter as well, you know, like it's weird to me. But yeah, it's cool. I love opening for him. His wife and I are very good friends, and yeah, so it's great.
What is because you know I blew your mind yesterday when I said I lived in Las Vegas. You're like, oh my God, let me tell you something about Las Vegas. It's the best move I ever made in my life with me and the family.
Bro, I believe you. You blew my mind in a very positive way, because I'm always like, you know what it is? I'm thankful when comics who have families get the fuck out of these awful cities that are like, they're not family friendly. Like New York and LA are not family friendly. And I love it when I find out, like, I'm like, oh my God, you care about your family and you're a man. I love that. Like, God, you have no idea how much I love and respect that when I see it.
You know, the one thing people always see Vegas as just the strip, but man, once you get like outside the strip, it's one of the most kid-friendliest places.
It's a regular ass. Yeah, I got homies that live out there. I know. That's why I'm telling you. That's why I was like happy when you told me. I was like, hey, good for him. Good for you.
No, because to me, if you're not in the industry and hustling hard, why even live in LA?
Exactly.
Because once you start to pop in comedy, if you're just touring a lot, you can do that in a different city and not have to deal with LAX. You know what I mean?
Need an airport.
Just need an airport.
Airport.
How is the comedy scene? Has it changed after COVID, the comedy scene in LA?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, shout out to all the people that quit. I appreciate you. I respect you. We did not need you. And I'm glad you're gone.
You got more spots now. Is that what you're saying?
You know, I think the shows are just more full of life, you know, full of passionate people, you know, like we have all the people that want to do comedy right now, you know, and even the younger comics who started during COVID, which is a wild thought to even have, but like they're also just more passionate and they really love comedy. And I think that that's nice. It's putting like fire under people's asses, and it's nice to that comedy has changed in like a very good way, in that the people who are doing it now are really doing it because they love it.
That's true, because you know it made you COVID made you really reevaluate your life, and that's another reason we got out. It's like, I don't need to live here. I'm at a level where I could travel, do my thing, and I don't have to be there. You know what I mean? For you, what did it change in you? Is it, but away from business, did you reflect on anything, and did it change you in any way?
I mean, so at 2019, before, you know, COVID shut everything down, I remember going into 2020 thinking like, I need to take breaks, man. Like I toured too much. I'm hustling too much, and it's not worth it. Like I was like, I need to do like 2 weekends a month max, because I was like, I can't do every weekend. This is like not a good way to have a life.
No,
there's nothing going on. I'm not getting any rest. I'm not like enjoying myself. So I already went into 2020 being like, I need a break. So like, of course, it kind of rocked my world to be like, oh, I'm like on a 24/7, 365 break now. Okay, cool. But it did kind of help me undo all that wiring of like needing to always be out, needing to always be working, needing to be busy all the time, needing to be hustling. If I'm not working on one thing, I need to be working on the other thing. If I'm not even working on that thing, I need to be thinking about the next thing. And that killed that. It totally killed it. I was so glad because now I do feel like I have a better balance in my life. Like, yeah, I tour, but sometimes like if I'm touring, if like I have a weekend on the East Coast or something, I'll get there a day early, something I never did before, or 2 days early so I can like get that
Yeah.
rest, get with the time zone, like feel good, feel rested by the time I'm on stage because I'm realizing that's the shit that matters. And I do want to maybe not see some of these cities, but like I want to be rested and well fed and not rushed and that type of
Yeah.
shit, like
No,
that has really been the improvement for my life.
that's awesome, and it's great that like people find those little things during COVID because a lot of us we knew it was going to come back, we just didn't know when, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But when
Exactly.
it did come back, we go, okay, I have a different game plan because I'm every 2 weeks, every other week, I do a show. I'll
Sure.
leave town. So I
Yeah.
do 24 to 26 shows a year across the country, and that's it.
And
So
that's great.
and then what's so amazing, the Comedy Cellar in Las Vegas, like they take such great care of me. Big shout outs
Oh,
to
nice.
Esty. Like they always book me. So I'm always working out. And that's why I was like, when you said Vegas, when I told you Vegas and you got excited, I was like, yo, man, I think you got Austin with the Rogan people. But
Sure.
Vegas, I'm telling you, it's that next spot. It's that
Yeah.
next spot. I think
Yeah.
I
I
think a
believe
lot
it.
of comedians from LA, because I know a couple big moves happening in Las Vegas, and I think it's gonna move a lot of comedians
That's
to
great.
Vegas.
I think that's great because especially, that was the other thing with COVID. It made comedians who want to for sure do stand up really be like, no, I for sure want to do stand up. And then the
Yep.
comedians who are like, actually, I want to do more TV or actually, I want to do this, that, the other, right? Or whatever. It's like, it really helped everyone define where they want to be and how they want to approach it. And that was cool.
Do you feel like because your image on stage and like I said, social media and things, do you think that's taken any opportunity away from you?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
100%. It has. I know it has. I know it has. And I've kind of like,
How do you
uh,
balance that?
I mean, I I think since I was a kid, I've just been very comfortable with the fact that I would rather be myself
Mm-hmm.
or I would rather make sure that I'm happy. And that doesn't mean that I'm always happy, of course. I still have to deal with some of the repercussions of my own actions. I know that. But I'm also like good, like actions have consequences. I'm a big believer in that. And I'm even now it's like I have to grow and I have to like figure out what the next move is and figure out like what I really want to do in terms of like the next hour and the touring and all that shit. And it's also that thing of like if I'm not accepted as myself, I don't want to be accepted.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I think that's the big part for me. And it's interesting because I literally was just having some of these thoughts earlier today because I was like, oh yeah, if I hadn't done that, I'd probably be doing this right now. And but again, it's like I'm very much like I want to be known as me in the same way that like I think we all know that Patrice O'Neill really struggled with how his personality really hindered his career, and he knew that.
Yes.
And Mark Maron is another great example of someone who took some of the bad shit he had in the past and he flipped it on its head when he started doing the WTF pod. And so I'm in that space right now too where I'm kind of trying to be like, okay, what do I do with this now that I'm a little more in the world of this industry now that I have this special, and what's the next move, and how do I continue to be embraced as myself? And I feel very fortunate that like I've been able to get away with what I've been able to get away with, and I just want to basically keep getting away with my own bullshit.
Do you feel like because the big new thing on Instagram is clips,
Yeah,
crowd work
yeah. Wait,
clips?
can I also add something else to that?
Yeah.
Because I think that exactly what you said earlier, where it's like, oh, when I meet you, you were so nice, and then on your persona on stage or on Twitter, it's like it's whatever, it's aggressive. I'm a bitch, basically. But I'm like, but I'm still nice. Do you know
You
what I
are.
mean? Like at the end of the day, I'm still a good person, and I sleep well knowing that. Like I'm not like some vindictive asshole, jealous, like not rooting for people. Like I'm a very good person. I just have a fucking attitude.
No, but you are a great person. I do know that. And that's why it's kind of like I brought up earlier. It's like, you say that your image online is a bitch, but I never saw that. So, I mean, nobody's ever brought that up to me, but I would be like, no, she's a great person. That's
Sure, yeah. But I also know that like the concept of like a woman being a bitch is like it's so hard for people to understand that, like, is she being a bitch, or did she just not give you what you wanted? Is she being a bitch, or
Yeah.
did she tell you the truth? Is she being a bitch, or you know what I mean? And I think that also, going back to like the younger generation, they're more inclined to understand that, like, oh, a woman has an attitude not for no reason, like, dude, one time I opened for Phoebe Robinson pretty regularly, and one time she tagged me on her Instagram stories because she was doing like one of those Q&As you submit, and somebody was like, your opener was like really mean to me, and at this one LA show, and she was like, my opener was Marcella, and mean to you. What did you say to her? Because you
Yeah.
must have said something, because she's not a bitch. She reacts, but she's not a bitch. And she was right. And that girl even admitted, because she heckled me and she said some wild shit to me, and I simply reacted. And then that's what I always find interesting, is that people's inability to accept their role in my reactions.
And let me tell you, it's a thing where I feel like the big trend, and I was leading to the big trend on the Instagram right now, is crowd work clips.
Sure.
And I feel like now you can't go on stage without people just yelling stuff from the audience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's, look, if you're great at it, that's phenomenal, and it's blowing up certain people, and that's great. But I also think a lot of times for comics that aren't crowd work people, it's not good, because you have people just yelling out stuff trying to get on Instagram. Do you feel the same way?
I do, but I'm also good at I am good at crowd work. So like,
Yeah.
I'm good at being able to regulate. I've also opened for headliners who don't want to ever do crowd work, and I've always been a good like feature spot for them, because I'm good at regulating like which person I can get to shut the fuck up, and which person I can tell the staff like they need to go, because I will not shut the fuck up, and that's going to be a problem for the headliner, because not every headliner likes it. And it's tricky, and I agree. Like, I have noticed people heckle way more than they ever have before.
It's especially in Vegas. I mean, it's
I
like
believe it.
People trying to be on clips. It's
I know, it's weird.
Yeah, but look, no knock to the people that are blowing up from it. But
I mean, I do knock that a little bit. We should knock it a little bit.
Do you think so?
They're posting too many. It's incredible. You know what I really don't like? I saw, who was it, Matt Rife, who like, he was like, you guys need to stop coming to my shows and heckling. It's like, bro, you got to stop posting these fucking clips, because like, you can't keep posting the thing and then complain about it. You can't. It just doesn't make sense.
If your whole thing is posting interaction with the audience and then being like, yo, you got all these young girls screaming at you. I mean, that's what you're posting.
Yeah,
that's what people.
Yeah. You're blaming the victim here, and
yeah,
you're right.
And here's the thing: we are what we post. Whether you don't believe in social media or not, you are what you post.
Absolutely. Yeah, I am a bitch. You're right. Why do you gotta keep bringing it up?
Well, bitch, grow up. Let's talk about that. Bitch, grow up. HBO Max. Like, was there any relief of doing it, and relief and stress? Because I've shot 2 specials, and it's a thing where once you release it, you're like, oh my God, I got to create new stuff. Or did you already have a bunch of stuff, and this was just 30 minutes of the chunk you already have?
Yeah, a little bit of both, because I was actually I had an April. I recorded it in July, and in April or May or something right before that, I was recording an album, because I was like, I'm done with this material. This material is done.
Yeah.
Like, you just know when you're fucking sick of telling these fucking jokes. And I was like, oh, let's record this album. It'll be my second album, whatever. Nobody wants my material, so fuck it. Let's do an album. Bro, I had the worst weekend probably ever. And we recorded it. And it was funny, because those jokes that I love, that killed, did terrible. Bombed. I had to go to crowd work. I had to go to like old stories that I never tell on stage, because that weekend was like so weird. And we're still going to release that album pretty soon. But
where was it at? Can you say?
In Fort Collins. And it's interesting, because I've performed there plenty of times before, the Comedy Fort. I love their venue. Their audience is usually on point. That's why I chose that space. But it was like graduation weekend, and like hella like parents and grandparents were home. And it was funny, because you think that they'd be the problem, but sometimes it was like the student was like uncomfortable that their grandparent was laughing at a sex joke or something, and that's what made it kind of even more funny. It was like, it's not like people are not having a good time, they're just not having a good time with each other.
Yeah, I got you.
So that kind of sucked. But then it was like, fuck, now I still have all this material. So when I got that call in, I think June, so it must have been like 1 or 2 months after that, I was like, oh, perfect. I can do all this material that I was ready to get rid of. And it was a trip when I was editing the album after editing the special, because I was like, wow, I'm literally hearing me bomb on a joke that crushes on the HBO special. And it's also that thing of like, yes, comedy is objective. And like, it's also funny to me that like you can have jokes that get an applause break that a room full of people will fucking not respond to, like will
Yeah.
not like, you know?
Yeah, that's what I love about comedy, man. It's literally no matter what show you do, you get exact same setup and everything, two different
Yep.
responses.
Two different responses.
And it's so humbling too when you sell a lot of tickets somewhere and you go somewhere else and it's like, yo, nobody's here. You know, that's what I love about it though. You know, until you get to the Sebastian, Bill Burr, Joe Coy, whatever that level, where you know everywhere you go is going to be sold out.
And you know what? I'm not in a rush to get there. Like I always think about that. Like I have always loved that Bill Burr's first hour was when he was 40. I love that little fact because I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how it should be, you know? Also, people are more interesting when they're older anyways, you know?
It's true.
And I keep thinking like, I am not in a rush to like do sold out theaters, and that's where I try my new shit or hope that and then because they already love me, they're down, and then you don't know if the material is actually weak or if it's strong. Like I have no desire to get there quick, basically.
It's interesting. Like I have friends, and you have friends as well, selling out giant venues, practicing material that they don't even know that. But now they're so big. That's the only that's like their improv. That's amazing. 13 to 15,000 people is your improv. I went to a show, and this is like, I went to a show and I was looking at 18,000 people in a venue, and I go, all I need is 14 of these rows, a show, and I would be set for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
just 14 rows out of this whole, like 14 small little rows out of, it was 300 to 500 people in that section. I go, if I could have this, just that little 14 row thing every show,
good.
I'd be set.
I'd be
set.
Trip.
It's so,
a trip.
Since you're so close and like what comics, it's so close. What do you think? And if we all knew, we would all do it. But what do you see mostly as the through line to all these people that kind of like blow up?
Oh God, that's a great question. I mean, I feel like, well, time usually, right? Like they've put in the time.
Yep.
But I think that it's that consistency, that what is it called? Like the determination, the like, I will be doing this. Like they are so focused that they make it happen. Like it, you know, we all know that we could keep doing this forever, right? But it's like you kind of get to navigate where you want to go with it, you know? And I think a lot of comedians that get to that level, they manifest that shit because it's like, I just think about someone like Quinta, right? Who, you know, I knew her through stand up, and to watch her like make the pivot. Like I remember having the conversation with her at my women's monthly show, Women Crush Wednesday. She was like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do stand up anymore. And I was like, what? Because she's so good. She's just naturally talented, naturally funny, just like perfect no matter what the fuck she's doing. And talking to her, and it was like, and it wasn't that long ago, and she was like, I'm gonna quit stand up. And I was like, no, you know, and then it was like, well, you know, she was basically like, I want to pivot. And she was determined and she was focused and she made it happen. And I will also say that that combined with having a supportive partner, I fully believe those two things are what really take people to a level that is like unmatched.
100%.
Because I feel like once you have that supportive part, I've gotten like I've unfriended people who've cheated on their wives because I'm like, she was there for you when you weren't.
It's so
shit.
true.
Like, how dare you? She let you do whatever the fuck you wanted. Like, she sacrificed for you, because there's so much of that. Like that supportive partner, that like lack of stress. That because dating really, like, I think it ruins a lot of people's everything, you know, and wastes a lot of people's time. Yeah, every comic I know that's doing well, even when they're young, usually has like a supportive partner. And I've always been like, man, that's the missing key piece for me for sure.
So you're still seeing how is it finding a partner for you?
It was It took a very long time, and it was really difficult. And I'm very thankful that I have found someone who is very supportive and is just so great and not stressful at all.
That's the whole thing. Like my wife is amazing and my
She's
kids,
great. I love
but
her. I love following her. You guys are beautiful together. The children are beautiful.
let me tell you, once we got together, my whole career changed. And like you said, it really is a support staff. It's a person when you come home, you can tell them anything.
Yep.
And they're gonna have your back and they're gonna help you make the right decision. Like I remember when I told her I was getting out of entertainment television and just doing comedy, and we're gonna take a big hit. She was like, "Let's go, let's do it. I got it. Let's go."
Yeah, that's great. I love
Yeah.
that. That's how it should be, and that it relieves this stress and this doubt, and it also like I don't know what it is where it's just like you do need someone to be like, it's gonna be okay, and you're like, yeah, it is good. Yeah, you're right. I
Yeah.
don't know why we need it, but it's also just like I also just dated a bunch of chaotic dudes who just treated me really badly, and it was like, oh yeah, I just didn't need all that stress while I was pursuing
It's
my dreams, you know?
it's amazing you would be with a guy because you're so outspoken with a guy that would treat you badly. Like
Well,
I would feel like you would sniff that out so fast.
I have a lot of people that say that, but it's the problem was always that like I date who dates me, right? I always
Yeah.
think about that Whoopi Goldberg quote where they asked her like, "Oh, you only date white men?" She's like, "No, I only date people who want to date me," and it just
Mm.
happens to be white men, right? And for me, it was like I was like, I'm just gonna go out who wants to date me because you can't. The thing about being an assertive or aggressive woman, it's like you can't force guys to like be in love with you. You can't
Yeah.
force them to like treat you well. You can't force them to do any of these things. And I've also learned to like I just stopped pursuing men because I was like, they don't like that. Like, I don't care how many men say they want it confident, aggressive. They do not want that. Men want what they want. Like women are
Yes.
to me will adapt more easily to a man's looks or personality or whatever the fuck. But I feel like men are not as adaptive unless they're
And
like really fucking ugly. Then they have to be,
they'll go with the flow for
have
anything, then,
to.
right?
They'll have to.
Well, I told my wife this, and I said, women want to think they're the reason the guy settled down. And I go, no, a guy has to be already in that mindset.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
because I told my wife, well, if I would have met you 15 years ago, this wouldn't have happened.
Exactly.
You know what?
Yeah.
So it's really a thing where a guy has to reach a point where he says, you know what? I'm ready to settle down now. Because I tell everybody this, there's dating to date and there's dating to get married. It's two different
Sure.
types of dating. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So when I started dating and get married, that's when I found my wife.
Oh wow, that's beautiful.
Now, since I live in Vegas, you were telling some cool stories. You love Vegas.
Yeah, I do. Well, so I didn't go to Vegas. We went as kids, right? My parents would take us, and we always had a blast. And then I never went as an adult because I could give a fuck.
Yeah.
And then because I kept hearing all these terrible stories. Like everyone I talked to was like, "Oh, it's awful," and "Oh, it's gross," and "Oh no, I lost money." And I was like, "Why would I go? Like, I'm not."
Yeah.
If you tell me that something is shitty, like I'm just not going to do it. I don't need to experience it myself. But then some of my homegirls who they go every year, multiple times a year, they were like, no, we don't do what they do. They're like, we spend money and like have a good show, have
Yeah.
a nice hotel, make sure to make reservations at a nice restaurant. And I was like, wait a minute, that sounds great. What? I didn't know that's what
Yes.
people did. And then I actually got some of like I don't know if you know Lydia Popovich. She's a great comic, and because she also would do Vegas, but with some of her friends. But I was like the shows she would go to. I was like I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
And then one weekend she found that Mariah Carey was playing one night and Jennifer Lopez was playing the next night. And so she was like, do you want to go to this? Because I don't want to go with the people I go with because they are not going to be super into it. And I know you will. And I was like, you know what? Not only will I have some other homegirls that you don't know that would be down. So we did this like super fun ass weekend where we saw J.Lo, Mariah Carey back to back, which is
Wow.
two different shows and two outstanding shows for two different reasons. And, we ate at Bardot. Like, oh my God, we had the best time. And I was like, yeah, this is how I want to do Vegas forever. I did the
Right.
like fancy schmancy shit. And I was like, that's the Vegas I want to be
That's the
at.
Vegas, the Vegas that people talk bad about. That's when you're young and you pass out
Broke,
places and
you're broke and you
and
don't
you're
know how
broke.
to drink and you mix your drinks and
Yeah.
like yeah, exactly. You like fucking buy a bottle at the liquor store because you don't
Yeah.
want to spend. And it's like, no, I didn't want to do. I never wanted to do that, but I was like, those are the people that were inviting me, and I was like, I'm not going with you. I do.
No.
None of it sounds safe, you know.
Yeah, like it's a very like the way you did it was sexy. It's a very sexy way you can do
It
Vegas.
was so grown and I loved it. And then like the next year we did Bill Burr and Magic Mike back to back, and that was so fun. And you know, I'm friends with Nia, so it was like come
Yep.
back. She like got us all this shit on his writer just for us, and we just had a blast with her, and it was so fun. And she loved it too because um she just what her homegirls don't like do that every time she's at Bill's in Vegas,
Yeah.
which is totally understandable. But she was like, "Oh hell yeah, this is gonna be so fun," and we just had a fucking blast. It was awesome. That's the way to
Uh,
do Vegas.
That's the way to do it. All right, let's
Save your
talk about your
coin.
special before we go. Bitch, grow up. Tell me about it. What can people expect from you on this special?
Growth. Like that's the
Mhm.
whole thing is because someone was like, "Is it? Are you telling yourself or are you telling the audience?" It's like all of us. We all need to grow up a
Yeah.
little bit. I don't care where you're at in your life. We all need a little bit of growing, and it's like it's just a great introduction to me and my style
Good.
of comedy and what I'm capable of. You know, one-liners, stories, little riffing here and there. And I'm very proud of it because it's a if it's people's introduction to me, it's a really great introduction to me because it kind of gives you like all of the things that I can do.
That's great. Do you feel that because you know the cancel culture was big, but I actually feel it's going the other way because I said something on stage the other night, and somebody said something, and then people started booing that person. So I feel like, do you feel like the
Wait, what do you
pendulum?
mean?
Well, I said something, and then a person didn't agree with what I said, and they
Mm.
spoke out against it, and then the crowd got mad at that person,
I
like
mean,
they
I
were
feel
being
like
too.
that's always been kind of common, though, don't you think? That like
I
if
don't.
somebody,
Well, I feel like during cancel culture, those people, the jumping on that person would kind of shut up. They wouldn't
mm,
stand up. But I feel like now the pendulum's swinging the other way.
I mean, I definitely think that audiences are figuring out that they need to do a little research before they go watch
Yes.
stand up. And I think that was the problem for a long time is that you can't just fucking buy it. I am so tired of people who are like, you do all this research to like go see Beyonce or you see that band that you love, but when you want to see comedy, you just fucking buy tickets for the weekend no matter what is going on. It's like, don't you want to know who's going to be there? Don't you want to research a little bit? I was so happy one time I was in Sacramento and this girl, she was loving my stand up to the point where I was like, "Oh, she's a fan." But I'm pretty aware of like who my
Yeah.
really super regulars are who love me. And I was like, "I've never seen this woman." So I was like, "Did you come to see me?" And she goes, "Yeah, I went to look who was here this weekend and I saw your little bio and I was like, "Wow, she's accomplished a lot." And I Googled you and I watched your clips and she was like, and girl, you were so funny. I was like, I have to come see her. And
That's great.
I was like mind blown because so many people don't do that. And I wish people did because it's like you should know what you're getting yourself into. Just like a restaurant. Don't you look at
Yeah.
the menu if your friend invites you for reservation somewhere? You look at the fucking menu.
Yeah. And it's also like you just can't go out to a comedy show and expect a good time because it's so
No.
subjective. What that comedian's talking about, you may hate. You know?
Exactly. Exactly. So I do think people are finally realizing that they need to look up who they're going to see if they're like on a whim wanting to go, dude, I was in San Francisco and like th- that's the thing on a whim, which is fine. If you love comedy, then I agree that on a whim is
Yes.
fine. If you really are a comedy fan, then yes, you can just buy tickets whenever you want and enjoy yourself or whatever.
Hmm.
But there are people who don't do that. And that one night in San Francisco, I did like back to back shows and these guys, man, they did not know me. They were like not into me. And I was like, you fucking morons, why are you sitting in the front row? Like, please, what is wrong with you? Look up these. And they're like tech bros. I was like, aren't you smarter than this? Like, don't you know?
Yes.
And then like the next show was like same thing. Two brothers sitting in the front row, never heard of me, bought tickets on a whim. But as I'm talking to them, because they say, no, we love comedy. And so I started fucking really roasting them hard and
Uh-huh.
they loved it. And I was like, yeah, they are. They are comedy fans. These guys love
Yeah.
comedy because they've never heard of me and they love that I'm making fun of them. And good, that's how it should be. If you actually love comedy, yes, you can go any weekend, no matter what, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bitch, grow up. Where can people find you on your socials?
At Marcella Comedy across the board, everywhere. I'm Marcella Marcella Comedy.
And so are you already working on that next one?
I am. I'm working on it. It's I had some leftover material,
Yeah.
from before. So that's sitting there waiting. And I'm working on new shit. But I also, I was opening for Ralph Barbosa this weekend. And it's fun working in front of other people's crowds because that's how you
Yes.
know, right? Like you can, because my crowd, again, my crowd is going to love my shit no matter what the fuck I say. And that's not challenging to me. I don't have a real idea of how the material is going. But I did it in front of Ralph's crowd. And it was like, man, it's interesting performing in front of younger people who maybe don't know exactly what they believe yet. Maybe don't have all the life experiences yet. And that was fun, like doing that new shit in front of them. Cause I'm like, okay, this needs work, because if they're not into it, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, 100%. If you want that feeling, just go to a college. You'll find out. Do colleges. You'll find out real quick.
That's true.
All right. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me,
Thank you for
Marcella.
having me, Michael. I'm going to come visit you in Vegas.
No, come to Vegas so you can come to the house and we'll do it right here.
I will. I'm excited because I'm like so happy for you. I always get so happy when people like make a move that I know is for their mental health and their family's well-being and shit like that. I'm like, good.
100%. That's what it's all about. You got one life and you should enjoy it and not be. To me, it was like, let me tell you, the last thing I want to say about LA, when I lived there, it always felt like some weight that was on you because everybody's in the industry. So everything you talk about is about the industry. Yep. Here, after this, I'm going to go pick up my son and nobody cares about what I do. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what's beautiful.
There's freedom. There's freedom.
There's freedom. Freedom. I'm free at last. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.